This lesson can be utilized if you missed class on Friday, February the 21st in first or fourth block. We're talking about x and y intercepts of a line. So first we have two definitions. The first one, the x-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. The ordered pair that it represents is x, 0. The y-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So the ordered pair is 0, y. So if you need to, pause it, go ahead and write that down, and I'll explain in 1 second. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to add a little something to this. We need to ask ourselves the question, what is an intercept? Because I've given you the definition of an x-intercept and a y-intercept, but we don't really know what it is. Okay? So if we look to the definition of both, we have x-intercept is the point, and y-intercept is a point. So we know that the intercept is a point. More descriptively, we want to figure out what we know about this point. So we know it's a point, and we want to figure out what we know about it. So if we read further into the definition, we know it's where it crosses the x-axis or where it crosses the y-axis. So it's a point where the line crosses the axis. Either the x-axis or the y-axis. Let's think of a better way to say this. A point, why don't we say a point on the axis? A point on the axis. Just to make sure we remember from 6th grade, the axis is the same thing as the x, y coordinate plane. So we have the x-axis and the y-axis. So there can be a lot of different points on that axis. So it says the point on the graph that crosses the x-axis or crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to draw a graph. I can draw any graph on my coordinate plane. I'm going to draw this one. Okay? If you follow along on that blue line, you should see how many places where it crosses the axis. 2. You see one where it crosses the x-axis, and you see one where it crosses the y-axis. Those are the x and y intercept. Now, you'll notice where it crosses the x-axis, y equals 0, and where it crosses the y-axis, x equals 0. So real quick, I did have some questions in class about what it meant on this whenever I said y equals 0 and x equals 0. So a little bit of an explanation of that is if I plot any point on the x-axis, then y equals 0. Also, if I plot any point on the y-axis, then x equals 0. So if I look at all of the points on the x-axis, y equals 0, y equals 0, excuse me, the origin's different. If I look at all the points on the x-axis, that's this one that I've highlighted right here. Y equals 0, y equals 0, y equals 0, y equals 0, and y equals 0 for all of the points on the x-axis. And then if I look at all of the points on the y-axis that's highlighted in green, I know that x is going to be 0, x is going to be 0, x is going to be 0, x is going to be 0. So that's what I mean by y equals 0 or x equals 0. Finding the intercepts. If you have an equation and you want to find the intercept, all you have to do is plug in 0 for y and solve for x. If you have a y-intercept, all you have to do is get the equation, plug in 0 for x, and solve for y. This example asks you to find both of the intercepts for the graph of y equals negative 8x plus 4. So I'm going to do the y-intercept first, and then I'm going to do the x-intercept. On the previous page, if I'm trying to find the y-intercept, I plug in 0 for x. So all I have to do is say y equals negative 8x plus 4. And what am I going to let x be? 0. What's negative 8 times 0? 0. What's 0 plus 4? Now you have to be very careful here. Is that my answer? No. What did it ask for in the directions? Find the intercepts. Well, what is an intercept? What is an intercept? A point. A point. Is a point y equals 4? No, a point is a coordinate. So the coordinate, the point, is going to be your answer. So our answer is the point 0, 4. Now I'm going to find my x-intercept. In order to find my x-intercept, I take my same equation. But now I'm going to let y equal 0. And I solved this equation just like we did back in chapters 1 and 2. Subtract 4 from both sides. 4 minus 4 is 0. Trying to solve for x, I divide both sides by negative 8. Negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1. And negative 4 divided by negative 8, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. X is 1/2. Have to be careful with that. Am I looking for x? I'm looking for the intercept, the point. X is part of that, but we also have to make sure that we have y. So my two intercepts are 0, 4 and 1/2, 0. The directions are to graph the line with a y-intercept of negative 2 and an x-intercept of negative 2 and a y-intercept of 3. So first of all, let's go back to the very first slide and remember, what does intercept mean? It's a point on the axis. It's a point on the axis. So that means I want a point on the axis. Well, in the previous slide, we talked about how the x-intercept is when y equals what? 0. So this is going to be the point negative 2, 0. Okay? That means I go to the left 2, and I'm at 0. The y-intercept is at 3. Y-intercept is when x equals what? 0. So I have the point 0, 3. I don't go left or right any, because I'm moving 0, and I go up 3. When I connect these two dots, these 2 points, that's going to be the equation of my line. If you're watching the video, go ahead and give yourself a second to pause the video and read the word problem. Okay, so they've given us the equation. It says 3x plus 4y equals 24. Now we've seen in the previous problem and in the problems in the previous couple of days that in order to graph a line, I need 2 points. Now today we've learned an easy way to find our 2 points. Those 2 points are when x and y equals 0, and they're called the intercepts. So we have an x-intercept and a y-intercept. Our x-intercept is when y equals 0, and our y-intercept is when x equals 0. So we're going to take our equation and we're going to solve for our intercepts. I have 3x plus 4 times y equals 24. To solve for my x-intercept, I'm going to let y equal 0. After you substitute 0 in for y into the equation, all you have to do is simplify the equation. 3x does not change. 4 times 0 is 0. And 3x plus 0 is just 3x. Once you get down to this step in the equation, you need to get x by itself. I have to refresh our memory all the way back to the second unit. For multiplying by x, in order to solve, we have to divide by x. So we're multiplying by 3, so we have to divide by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So x equals 8. That will help us a little bit maybe when we're answering the question, what do the intercepts represent? But we also need to make sure that we write the coordinate down. X equals 8 when y equals what? 0. So our point is 8, 0. We're going to do the same exact steps to find the y-intercept. Plug in x, solve for y. So we're going to go ahead and write down the equation and do the same as before, except this time we're going to let x be 0 and solve for y. So we're going to let x be 0. 3 times 0 is 0. Anything plus 0 is just itself, so 0 plus 4y is just 4y. I divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 24 divided by 4 is 6. So our point for our intercept is when y equals 6, x equals 0. So that point is 0, 6. Okay, now let's go ahead and answer the question before we graph it. It says, what do the intercepts represent? Well, each box of cookies costs $3 and each ice cream costs $4. So I have cookies costing $3. Cookies cost $3. So cookies goes with what variable? X or Y? X. And I have ice cream costing $4. So what variable does ice cream go with? Y. So let's think about this. When y equals 0, that means I bought 0 cartons of ice cream. And how many boxes of cookies? 8. 8 boxes of cookies. Well, when x equals 0, that means I bought 0 boxes of cookies and how many cartons of ice cream? 6. After you've copied that down, let's go ahead and use our graph to graph this equation. So we have the points 8, 0 and 0, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0 and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is this line right here. That's the graph and then the explanation of the intercepts.